understand the mystery. First take a look at the history. The words we use will give us clues. So join us now in Church Chatter.
Welcome to the Church Chatter podcast, where we unpack a different church word or phrase each week. I'm Sam. I study language and culture, specifically religious language and culture.
And I'm Dillon. I'm an ELCA Lutheran pastor.
And we always start with the question, where has your attention been recently, Dillon?
My attention recently has been with my wording and language.
Oh, I love that.
I tend to be a person that both thinks language is powerful and language matters and wording and phrasing matters, and I'm all on board with that. And I'd even advocate for that. But in my own life, sometimes I take language to be kind of ambivalent sometimes.
I know.
And not overly literalistic. And so sometimes I'm very general with my language, or I think that it kind of has an elasticity to it. And sometimes it kind of gets me in trouble because
Who does it get you in trouble with?
Well, with my wife in particular, who has a doctorate in this stuff. But so I think about wording and phrasing. I've been thinking about that even before, for a while. But
you can say it even before our debate last night, our argument. Is that what you wanted to say?
I think the old-fashioned word for it is a marital spat. So I think about that a lot because I'm very general in my language, where I'm always, which is not always the best. I'll tell you this. I always think, which can be true sometimes. I'm babbling now, but well, everything is up to interpretation. And generally that's true, but actually some things are not open to interpretation. And so basically what I've been paying attention to is that I need to be more mindful about the wording and phrasing that I use.
That's good. I'm needlepoint.
What are you paying attention to?
Hold on. I'm cross stitching because I need busy hands right now. That's just a season I'm in. So you're going to see me doing that as we talk, but I'm not done talking about your thing quick.
Oh, Lord.
I didn't know that you were thinking about your language after our conversation last night. And I love that.
Well, why could I not? Or how could I not?
I can be prone to literalism, which is why I'm so which is interesting because I'm a poet and I would call myself quite metaphor, poetic, artsy, live in the gray. Like, I don't think I'm a black and white person. Although, am I wrong?
No.
Although I do hold language to such a high standard, and I'm always I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I'm always very careful. Like, when I say something to somebody, I want it to be very clear what I'm saying, and even the tone that I'm saying it in. I want it to be, and if something I do it with Dillon all the time. If something comes out in like a snarky tone, but I didn't want it to be clear. Sometimes I want it to, but if I didn't mean it, I'll just right away be like, that came out not how I intended it. I just clear communication. I'm also a professor of English and communications. Like, I teach speaking and I teach writing and I teach rhetoric. And I think it's just a recurring thing with Dillon and I, that Dillon sometimes speaks very casually, even vaguely, more spirit of the law, and I can be more letter of the law, more like, but that's not what you said. So you said something, I understood it this way, and then I carried on with the assumption that that was what you meant. And then years later, I know I'm being vague now, but years later, then I find out that no, that's not how you meant it. So that's
So
interesting.
let's, so yeah, so let before you share yours, which I'm also interested in hearing because I'm not
It's
sure
a
what you're.
language podcast, so I think this is important.
So I have always been. Now I think there is a. I think there should be a healthy principle to affirming and maintaining the letter of the law. Don't get me wrong. I think the letter of the law matters. But I have always been a person of the spirit of the law. What was the intent? Why did they do it? What is the history behind it? What were they trying to do? Who were they trying to pin this on or put this towards? I've always been like that, mostly in my young adult and adult life. And then I studied political science and legal studies with more emphasis on the legal studies than the political science. And I I specialized in undergrad um, in the judicial branch of government. There's three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. And my political science and legal studies degree helped me learn about all three. But really, I focused on just one, which was the judicial system. And so that is interpreting laws, interpreting. And then I went to attend seminary, which is all about interpreting the history of the church, the theology of the church, and the Bible, both the Old and New Testament. It's always about interpretation. And so I find myself both in my I don't want to say old life and new life, but to put it like that, always been in the mode of interpreting things. So, for instance, last night we were interpreting, and I don't want to go into details, but oh no, not just with our
Spat.
spat, but the word that we were spatting about, which has a lot of interpretation behind it, which is, and I don't want to get into detail.
Contribute.
Contribute. Contribute can mean many things. Historically, it has meant kind of generally one thing for many people, but it has not always meant that. There's many different ways of understanding contribute and how one contributes to a community. And that's what we were talking about. And I kind of honed in on one way of contributing, and I kind of alluded, which was not very healthy of me, but I alluded to, well, it's one way, and it's not one way.
Do you
It's never
remember,
been one way.
for our dozens of listeners out there, most of whom know us personally, so it's fine. Well, maybe that makes it more difficult. I don't know. But do you remember when we first started dating, the first fight of our relationship, whenever I was visiting you for the weekend and you casually said, most people,
Oh, I do
blah, blah,
remember.
blah, blah, blah. I don't even
Well,
remember,
now
but
I do.
you said
Now I
most people. And I said, well, what do you mean most people? I don't even remember what we were talking about. And I said, well, that's not most people. You're like, yes, it is most people. And I said, so you mean a majority of people? And you said, yes. And I said, where are you getting your numbers from? Again, this is showing you who Dillon is and who I am. He just casually, if you know me, you know that I'm not a casual person. Would you agree? Yeah. And I said, you mean many people, because most people would mean 51% or more, like more than half, a majority. Most means more than half, a majority. And you were like, I don't know, just most. Or I'm like, no, you mean many. You mean
so
many. And this
so
conversation lasted hours.
so here's an interesting thing, though. We humans, I actually want to go here, and we're going to get to our topic.
I'm not saying I'm right, by the way.
No, 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 no,
I
no.
see the
No, but
Craziness.
we humans across time and space, not consistently, but there's kind of a general, moderately general through line. We humans like to be able to quantify things. We like to be able to record things, quantify things, figure
Categorize.
out what's that?
Categorize.
Categorize things, figure out how we can do something, right? And so the topic that you and I were talking about, there's three general ways of contributing in the conversation that we were having. Two of the ways is very difficult to record or keep a record of. But one of the other ways, which we were also talking about, contributing in terms of like monetarily to a community, is something that humans have found rather somewhat easy to record, and so therefore contributing to a community can happen and has always happened in a multitude of different ways. But historically, we've seen contributions to a community being easily quantified by the giving
How many
of
dollars do you give?
the giving of monetary, whether it's a donation or a tithe or an offering or something like that. And so that creates a kind of, okay, this person has not, in terms of that, right? Where the other two, like contributing someone's time or someone's talent, is happening all the time. But that is not the easiest thing to quantify, to record. And so therefore it has unfortunately sometimes leaned towards just contributing to a community monetarily. And yet
You said
that's
you didn't
not.
want to give details about our
Well, no,
conversation.
I'm just
That's
saying,
pretty much it.
but that's not what it's always meant. But there is still that understanding that one will contribute to a community. That's a part of it. That's a part of being a part of the community.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so to circle back, you are trying to be more careful with your words. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe I should try to be less precise and leave some wiggle room.
Well, no, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
It can make conversing difficult
Just a bit.
when
So
I
what?
expect precision. Okay.
So what have you been? What is on your mind? What have you been thinking about?
Okay. So I've never told you this, Dillon. It's been coming up for me for like a month, maybe.
God.
Tell me if this happened to you. When you were a kid, now remember, I wasn't raised with religion. So like, I didn't like pray with my parents, right? God was not a word used in my home. I none of that. But when I was a kid,
Well, with your grandparents, it was.
yeah. No.
Mm.
Like we'd pray before Thanksgiving dinner, but I mean.
Oh, well, I would argue that even families that aren't very religious do that. It's just
Yeah.
it's a nominal custom.
Yeah, we would pray before we went to bed when we visited my dad's side of the family, but that was like once a year that we would visit because they're like a 4-hour car drive away.
Right.
So
Okay. So yeah.
okay, so I don't know how old I was. 4, 5, 8, I don't know, young. It happened a lot. I would lay in bed. And you know how kids have kind of like depth of thought, right? Like we think that kids are like don't know much, but actually they do, right? And I would lay there and I remembered like in my head and sometimes out loud, I'd be like, how much longer? Like I would do this. I'd be like, how much longer do I have to keep taking a breath for? This is so annoying. This thing we call breathing. I just have to do it over and over, like make it stop. And this isn't like I didn't want to be alive. It was just like, make it stop. I did the same thing with swallowing. Like we're constantly swallowing, right? I'd swallow. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to swallow again. Are you kidding me? And I would just be like, make it like, I'd like look up and be like, how much longer do I have to do this for? This is crazy. Same with blinking, right? We're like blinking all day. I just remember I had this big queen size bed when I was a kid. I would lay in the bed and just be like, I'm so tired of breathing, of swallowing, and of blinking. Did you have that or no?
Yeah.
No, no. Okay. Well, it's a memory that keeps coming up for me.
Thanks for admitting it though, and now it's documented. I mean, I think
I had
I
this.
don't think it's, and I'm not just saying this because you're my wife, but I don't think that's weird because that they are things that we're constantly doing, and it's like you start to do question yourself, like, why do I have to breathe all the time? Why do I have to swallow
Yeah.
all the time? Why are my eyes
And
blinking? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and for
Yeah.
me, it wasn't as much questioning as it was like nails to a chalkboard for me. It was
Oh, that's interesting.
visceral suffering of like, are you kidding me?
Oh,
I have to inhale and exhale again.
like an inconvenience for you, or
Yeah,
that's
suffering. It
interesting.
felt like suffering. It felt like, oh, like this annoyance beyond
So you think that you should have just existed without any of those bodily functions?
well, I've been thinking about it for a few weeks. I've been writing about it because I like forgot that I had those experiences, but now I'm remembering like for years I just be like, oh my God, how long do I have to do this for? I was
Well,
like so frustrated,
a curious person, so that makes sense.
curious, and it really felt like my body wasn't big enough. It just felt like I was crawling in my skin of like, oh, these bodily things. I
Oh.
went on to become a very disembodied adult. Everything about the body has always been so like a cage for me. Like, oh my gosh, I'm bigger than this body and let me out of here. I still feel like that on a daily
Well, that's
basis.
a very, yeah, and that's also a very Western way of thinking.
Yeah,
I mean that the body is
a problem.
the flesh, the body is a problem, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
and well, it is, but it's
Did
also
Tab upstairs?
part of the experience.
There's a
I
child outside in the hall. I don't know if I hope it's not Sophie awake. I think it's Tabby though.
I don't know.
Sophie might be up. Yeah, she's coming down.
Okay.
We might be
Well,
interrupted for a moment, but and Dillon knows this, but I have this intense like I hate redundancy and repetition, and I actually think that for whatever reason I'm kind of ripe for like I don't know if this is a real thing, but like existential depression. Do you know what I mean? Just this like, what is this? Why am I here? What is going on? And I've really, in the past like 10 years of my life, especially, I've never struggled with depression outside of my pregnancies, thankfully, but I've always been like on the verge of like, what is like just feeling like too big for this thing called a body or called life. And I've leaned into existential joy. I know that I'm like throwing a lot against the wall right now. I'm just having this memory and trying to make sense of like, why did I feel like that? And even now, if I pay attention to my swallowing or my breathing, or as you know, Dillon, I can't stand repetition. Like if I had to do the same 10-second task over and over and over again, I can't. It's like I'm almost incapable of it. I cannot stand it. Or if our children, like if Sophia's like, I want a cupcake, and then we're like, and we're not having a cupcake right now. She'll go, I want a cupcake. I want a cupcake. I want a cupcake. And there's something in me that's like, I cannot handle it. Or sometimes Tabby, our 5-year-old, will like have a crayon and she'll just color in the same spot over and over. I have to walk out of the room. I can't. Or if there's like an alarm that I hear and it's the same, or Dillon likes to take a sound from a song and sing the same 5 seconds of that song over and over and over and over. I don't know. There's something wired in me that like the fact that I have to like breathe in and out over and over and over, it's maddening to me. Anyway, that's where my attention has been. It's just trying to unpack that memory of like, why
so
is this?
you definitely wouldn't make a good monastic, I'll tell you that.
No, no.
Well, that was good
But
though.
maybe
That
leaning into the repetition is what I'm being called to do. I don't know. Or maybe
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm just exploring this memory because it's been coming up for me and I've never told you about it, but here we go.
No.
Yeah. All
Lovely.
right. Episode 67. We are talking about actually the intro is becoming one of my favorite parts. It's kind of fun. But today we are talking about the word belief. Oh, sorry. The last episode, our last episode was on the word faith, and this one is kind of related. So, belief, if you remember loyalty, faith had a lot to do with fidelity or loyalty, where you put your trust, and belief is really similar. Um, Again, language changes. So now, whenever it's like I believe something, we believe it to be true. We believe it to be factual. Sometimes we believe it to be like, this is the right set of beliefs, right? That's how we use it today. But let's unpack the history a little bit and like some of the nuance baked in there that helps me. Belief
Real quick,
is about,
hold on. So I want you to go, but I think it's important for this episode in particular, to separate the difference between something that is.
hold on just a moment. Come here. You can have my water bottle. Here. Tabby just wants a drink. Okay, keep going. Belief.
So something that is, we assume is a part of belief, is factually true, right? Yeah. We've equated belief with fact, right? That is different than something that is true.
We've equated fact and true as the same things, but they're not.
Right. And sometimes they are, but they don't always have to be.
I explain this to my students all the time. And the thing that makes it click for them is when I say, I actually use this example in front of my students. When I say, my husband is like my other half, that is true, but it is not factual. It is true because it expresses something honest, which is there's something about him that makes me feel more whole. But it is not a fact because I'm not cutting myself in half and cutting him in half and then putting us together and like he's my other half. It is not factual, but it's true. And we're in the land of metaphor as soon as we start talking about truth. Yeah. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, like it is true. It is true. And it sounds corny, but it is true that I love you to the moon and back. It's showing that the love is so far and so beyond and so wide, so vast that, and I know that that is true. I feel that deeply. Well, but there's nothing specifically that we could put on as, a scientific, there's things that we do, so there's,
It is a fact that I am 5 feet 3.5 inches tall. It's measurable, factual.
Right.
Yeah. It's two different realms. Yeah. With some overlap as well, but yeah. And I think
hold on, okay, this is my last one. It is a fact, historic fact, that Jesus of Nazareth was crucified by the Romans. That's a fact, historic fact. Christians and followers of Christ, of Jesus, believe it to be true that he rose from the dead and lives on in us. That lives on in his own being, but also his spirit lives on in us. That we believe to be true. We feel it, we experience it, both individually and collectively. It is true, absolutely true for us. But that is not a scientific fact.
Yeah. Good. That's a good foundation for talking about the word belief. So belief is less about having a thought about, it's hard to even talk about belief without using the word belief in only a modern sense, but belief is not about believing a set of like truths or facts. It is about having confidence in someone or something. And the easiest way to express that is if I were to say to Dillon before he were going to go play pickleball or give a sermon, if I say, I believe in you, that means I have confidence in you, right? And it comes into English from the Germanic word glauben, if I'm even saying that correctly. And this is related to the Indo-European root, which is the root for our English word love, right? And I said this in the last episode, but beloaf is where we get the word believe, and it means to hold dear, right? So believe and beloved are actually very etymologically connected, to believe something and to beloved. So to believe can be considered to hold someone or something dear. So to believe in something is to love it, and to prefer it over someone else or something else, right? So to say I believe in God is not to say that I like recognize God's existence as much, which that's baked in there, right? But that it's not just that, right? When people say I believe in God, I'm not even really interested anymore. I mean, something your grandmother has said is, I mean, we're going to use some language that I struggle with, but even the devil believed in God,
Right.
meaning um, that belief there is being used because again, this word belief, people use it in a lot of different ways, but to believe that God exists is not the kind of belief I'm that interested in, right?
Well, that's different
But
than
to,
proving something.
yeah,
When someone says, "Well, I can prove God," well,
yes,
you've lost your way.
right. I'm much more interested anymore in is that where your confidence is, right? So if I were to say,
Right.
before Dylan goes and plays tennis against a friend, if I were to say, I believe in you, it means I'm rooting for you. My confidence is
Right.
in you. And I don't like the competition of the sports here because I don't think it's a competitive thing as much. But it is, again, just like faith. If you listen to our last episode, it's about where are you putting your loyalty and your hope and your trust. If I say I believe in you, Dylan, it's saying I have trust that you are going to accomplish this thing, or that
Right.
you are where my hope is with you that you're going to win this, or that the outcome that you desire is there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so for me to say I believe in God or I believe in Jesus or whatever it is we believe in, it's I prefer it over something else. I prefer a life where I have my trust in God than a life where my trust is in the president or my
Right.
trust is in um, some other group or my trust is in something else to remedy something. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not even remedy something. I don't know if I want to stand on that hill, but um, so it's about preference, right? It's about where we put our trust again, just like the last episode. And this is really important. Again, we started this episode out by talking about how I like to tease apart language. It's why I made a career out of it. But to believe in something or someone, it's more so hang with me, Dylan, and tell me if I don't explain this but it's more about the action of the person doing the believing than the qualities of the object being believed, right? So when someone says, I believe in you, they're not acknowledging that you exist, but instead that they view you with a certain kind of favor or love. And that's why there's some translations of the Bible that don't say believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, but believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Because whenever we believe on rather than believe in, it's almost like I think of it like leaning on something for foundation. We don't believe in it as if like you are real. We believe on it, like we lean on something for foundation. We believe on it, like
Mhm.
we put our hopes and desires and trust onto it. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me, right?
Yeah, there's an interesting passage. There's been a lot of scholarly. I should just put it this way: scholarship. There's been a lot of scholarship on do we do we place our faith or trust or belief in Jesus Christ, or do we place our faith and trust on the faith of Jesus Christ?
Yeah. And I know that this might
And
go ahead.
and some people would say, "Oh, that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's just semantics." No, that's where you really that's good scholarship when you're
Mhm.
digging into the original language. You're seeing what the intent of the author was, what words they actually used, and the words what they actually use could go both ways, in or on. However, it seems like most it would be on the faith, so not in, but on the faith. So Jesus was the one who provided the faith originally, how we would understand it, and so we put our faith on the one who first brought the faith. Does that make sense?
I'd have to think about. These are the kinds of things you almost have to like meditate on for a little while and like
Sure,
really
sure,
like
sure.
linger on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might seem like semantics and like needless, but actually how we use this language deeply shapes our theology and how our faith shows up in the world. And I think that what we're getting at here, if you unpack what we're saying about the word belief, do you use the word belief because you're interested in who has it right? Or in other words, who agrees with you? Like, I believe
Mhm.
that, you believe that. Oh, then we're in the right group. We're in the in group. Or is it about where is someone's confidence? And you can see pretty quickly by the level of despair that people have. And despair has a time and a place, right? I'm not saying that. And I'm not immune from this either because I can be consumed by despair because I've put my hope in the wrong place. I put my trust in the wrong place. But um, is it about being right? Or is it about where are you putting your confidence? Who are you confident in? What are you confident in? Where are you putting?
Yeah.
We're all, by the way, we're all confident in something. We all believe in something. Some
Yeah.
people put their confidence in politics. Some people put it in their faith world in God. Some people put it in the Lions Club. Some people put it in their marriage, right? And a marriage can't bear the weight of that. Another human can't always bear the weight of it. We're also finding out that systems can't bear the weight of it.
Right.
Um, so I think that's the big question because you can tell when someone's theology is about being right. And by the way, sometimes my theology is about being right. And it's something I'm constantly wrestling with.
Yeah, I just want to make reference to some of the things that we're talking about, how wording and phrasing matters, and how we're talking about belief and what we believe, what we believe, or what we put our trust in. This obviously, this episode is about belief, but the example that I was talking about, like pulling apart and doing the scholarly work of the Greek, can be found in three of Paul's letters. Romans chapter 3, verses 22, Galatians chapter 2, verses 16, and Philippians chapter 3, verses 9. And the interesting thing about this is that some translations would say the faith, placing one's faith or belief in Jesus Christ, or another way that it could be seen and follow the Greek very specifically is putting our faith or trust or belief in the faithfulness of Jesus Christ. So is it in or is it of? It could be both, but of meaning like the faith of, like, you're leaning on Jesus because he's the one who kind of like first started this movement, and you're putting your faith in
You're
uh,
putting your so what how I picture it is if it's Jesus's faith that we are having, like our faith of, right?
is it faith in or faith of?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can picture it. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well,
because so often people had said you need to place your faith in Jesus Christ. I actually don't have an argument of that, but that means that you yourself have to go and you have to put your own faith in Jesus Christ. You have to have faith in Jesus Christ. That's one way of understanding it. If you are placing your faith on or of the faith of Jesus Christ, it's the faith that's almost coming to you or on you already, and you're responding to the faithfulness of that person.
yeah. We're really in the realm of stuff truly. Like there's biblical reading practices that really involve somebody just meditating on one phrase. Like
Yeah, it's
there's
lectio divina.
thank you. There's monks who do this. They'll just take like one specific phrase and they'll meditate on it because I get what Dillon's saying, but something has to click and then you see it clearly, right? Or like,
Right.
oh, I see the difference now. Like that's the nature of language. I also want to say that because how we relate to this word belief, well, two things. First, in Acts chapter 16, that's where in certain translations, it doesn't say believe in, but it says believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. So you see this a lot of places in different translations. And I'm not even arguing that one's better or worse, but it does raise some questions to linger on.
So for me, because we're talking about belief, right?
Yeah,
We're talking about belief. My theology and what I have been taught, and some would disagree with me with this, and that would be obviously totally fine. I would rather, I would, I don't, I don't, I think that humanity has agency but limited agency, which means that I can't fully choose God because there is something there
Because
is some
perhaps some things were already chosen for you, like
yeah,
we were
right,
talking about earlier,
right, correct.
like predestination.
So I would rather, I mean, we could call it that. So,
Are you saying,
so
Dillon Epler, that you believe in predestination?
we could do a different episode on that. I'm not specifically saying that, but what I am saying is that humanity in both our individual sense, in the individual sense, and the collective sense, our humanity, I don't believe we have the full agency to be able to just have full decision and choice to choose God, right? I believe that that is only something that the divine, that God through Jesus gives us and brings us to respond to. So, for instance, I think it makes much more sense and follows the Greek much more faithfully when we are leaning on, bless you. So, when we're leaning on Christ or into Christ, right? On or into. And when we are placing our faith on or of Jesus Christ's faithfulness, right?
Yeah.
Because so, you know,
Yeah, that's good.
that,
Uh,
that, that met on and of are much more in line with my understanding of the story and my theology.
yeah,
Um,
me too. Me too.
but that
Uh,
doesn't mean that in is wrong.
no, but still, our whole point is that how the words that we decide to use and how we relate to this language does shape our theology, and inevitably it shapes our behavior and the kind of world that we're co-creating here. And the last thing I want to say is, if in fact how we use this word belief shifts how our theology of, like, I believe in something because it's the right set of beliefs, or
Mm-hmm.
because it's about where we put our confidence, right? I lean more towards it's about where we're putting our confidence. And this raises questions in me, about where is the line between when we respect difference within the large tent that is Christianity, and where is the difference that is okay and where is it damaging, right?
Right, right.
And I think about Jesus a lot and how he called the Samaritan good. And we've already established this on multiple episodes here, but the Samaritans were hated and they worshiped the same God. They were followers of the God of Israel. They worshiped the God of Israel, right? Just like the Jewish people. However,
But in a different way.
in a different way. They didn't think you had to pray in the temple. They didn't interpret the text. They didn't even agree on the text in the same way, right? And Jesus and everybody hated that, right? I would think of it kind of now. So I'm just struggling to know. Dillon and I are what would be called, I'll just talk to myself. I would be what's called a progressive Christian, right? And I don't even like that phrase to categorize it that way because I just feel like it's just called Christian, right? But fine. And then there's conservative Christians. And I think it's okay to be a conservative Christian. That to me feels quite similar to Jesus calling the Samaritan good, of like, you are in the same tent, right? And even if you're not in the same tent, that's fine. We're talking about Christians right now, and you are good. And we don't pray the same way. We don't even pray the same things, and we for sure don't interpret the text the same, but you're good. But then for me, it becomes, but when is it a Samaritan and when are they the Pharisees who are hurting people and causing harm and damaging? Because Jesus did not call the Pharisees good. He called them a brood of vipers. He called them poisonous. He called, now this is me, he did not say this, but whenever I think of brood of vipers, it's about snakes, it's about poison. There's a snake in the garden party, right? Of like, there's a snake here.
And
And
yet,
they're not, he did not call the Pharisees good. And there are Pharisees among us today, people with power in the system who are causing harm. And Jesus spoke out against that. And it's always, I think how we relate to this word belief really helps us try to find that line of when is it difference that should be respected and called good, and when is it a brood of vipers among us who's ruining the garden. Okay.
Right. And yet, and I think you would agree with me with this, and yet not all of the Pharisees were bad.
Right.
So the Pharisees actually had a lot of interpretive goods, treasures in terms of how they saw the text, how they accepted the ongoing words of God speaking, understanding that there was possibly something after death, meaning some type of afterlife. What happened with the Pharisees is not so much the Pharisees' understandings of things or interpretations of things, but the Pharisees got haughty and they got pompous, and they went about it in a way that made them haughty, like they were better than other people, and pompous in putting people down and trying to trip people up. That was the issue, because there was also there was and that's why Jesus and John the Baptist called them a brood of vipers, because it wasn't always necessarily what they were saying was wrong. It was how they were saying it and going about it.
Well, they were also lifting up a system that was robbing widows of their money.
Yes, it was. They were creating.
They were oppressing. They were oppressing.
An upsetting situation. However, then you also have the Sadducees, which was more of a priestly order, and they were almost strict literalists. The five books of the Torah. After you're dead, nothing else is happening. You're going to go in the ground and rot, and that's the end. So there was that faction. There was the Pharisees. There was the Essenes. There was the Zealots.
But I also think of, like, so Jesus called them the brood of vipers, but I also.
And they were
caught up in the Roman system of oppression, and they were lifting up the system, and they were benefiting from the system, many of them. And that's what Jesus was calling out. So I can't help, I'm just going to say it, I can't help but picture in Minnesota, those protesters, some of whom have been arrested now, but those protesters who went into the church to protest the pastor who was also a director for ICE. That feels like Pharisees to me. That feels like, you are benefiting. You're actually getting paid. You are benefiting by oppressing people, and also in the name of God.
Right.
That feels like Pharisees to me. But then I also, like, let's just actually be even more, I don't know if it's let me just say this. I also just go back over and over and over again of, like, Sam, do not need to have a fully formed theology. I sometimes feel like I have to go and be like, okay, well, where are they just like, some of these Christians are just different from me and it's okay. And others are a problem that I need to call out. Sam, am not responsible for deciding who is good and who is bad, for every person who's ever lived in every system. I don't have to categorize in that way. And I say this all the time, but I will be notified when I have to do something. It is my job to make sure that I am still and calm enough to know that I'm being notified, and it will show up in my face, right? If I am around somebody doing something that I know is wrong, that's when I can engage in the best way I know how. I write poetry. I am a mother. I am a professor who has a classroom and some degree of authority in that classroom, whether you like that word or not, right? I have certain spaces where I can't, like, if I were to hear a student calling another student a name, there are certain research topics that I just won't let my students do research topics that support hate. I won't let that happen, right? So there's certain spaces where I get to make a difference, but I can't have a grandiose sense of self that turns me into a savior. And that's kind of the beauty of, like, I don't have to, like, I think it's important that we use the word belief very carefully and intentionally, but I don't have to go around deciding who's using it wrong and who's being damaging all of the time. Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
I get caught up in the system of, like, they're doing the wrong thing.
What? Yeah,
Hold on, you're freezing.
you're delayed a little bit.
So are you. Are we good now?
Yeah, you're freezing too. I believe so.
That's all right. I can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about your comment in terms of belief and what do people believe, and some people see themselves as more progressive or inclusive Christians. People see themselves as more conservative or fundamentalist Christians, and yet what links us is the story of Jesus. Um, and it's because that's what makes us Christian or Christ. Honestly, the followers of Christ, we see things very differently. We interpret things very differently, and yet we are. I don't want to say we're one, but we. I see. I see that they are trying to. They're trying to keep the same story that I have and just understand it in a little bit of a different way. And honestly, that annoys me sometimes. And yet I do see them as a child of God. I see them as a person who is
Good. The Samaritan
trying
was
to follow the teachings of Jesus.
yeah.
Right, the Samaritan was good. I mean, I think about the United Church of Christ, the UCC church, which is such a diverse. I mean, literally, probably one of the most diverse Christian denominations ever. They basically agree on baptism and communion, that you need to do that, and Jesus as the central person, and they accept the Old and New Testament. Those are the four things that they really center themselves on. And yet, if you go to UCC Church, um, you're going to get a multitude of different understandings. Some are going to be extremely progressive. Some are going to be more in the middle. Some are going to be very conservative. And yet they're all one denomination. So I think about in terms of belief, the belief or the trust comes in the life and stories of Jesus. How that is lived out and interpreted can be so different even within one kind of group. Does that make sense?
It does. And I used to be so caught up and concerned with like, well, what do people believe? What are the beliefs? And it's like the set of beliefs that people think they're right about. And I actually just care less and less about it. And I care more about how does it show up? Like, what does it look like?
Right.
I guess the Christian way to say it is, what are the fruits? You know,
Oh.
it's a phrase I feel like it's just like a cliche, but it kind of works. It's like, what are the fruits of this? Because again, I've said it before, and again, this is not self-righteousness. I'm not a spiritually admirable human, but there are spiritually admirable people, and you feel it when you're around them because there are fruits. But there are people who, and I'm one of them, I like to engage in these conversations. I like conversations about spirituality and Christianity. I like to, like, I'll go anywhere. Let's go. Lead me, and we'll go fall down that rabbit hole together. I'll do it. We'll debate it. We'll go back and forth. I'm here for it. I'll form an opinion, and then in 5 minutes, I'll change my mind. Let's do it. I'm here for it, right? But that is a different posture than how sometimes people are very attached to their own system and they think that they have it all right. But you look at their life, not even their life, but their posture towards everything, where it's like, I don't see any evidence that what you have is working for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I think everybody can think of some. I know some people who they just have this beautiful belief in the sense that like where they put their trust, this faith, where their fidelity is, what they're loyal to, or their belief, what they are, how are we wording it? Believing on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm kind of stumbling over my words because I can't think of how to say it, but I know a couple people, I can think of them right now. Hard things happen to them, but they move through it with an ease. They don't fight reality as much as they just move through reality as it is. And that's an appealing spirituality for me. And I think a lot of people, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever people start talking about their set of beliefs as if it's the right, like the only right thing, and then, which I've done that too, by the way, right? So I'm not on a moral high ground here. I'm just not that interested in people who think they're right anymore, mostly because I'm not interested in myself being right anymore.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in like, is there a general, are there fruits to what you're doing? Are you
Yeah.
somebody who says I'm sorry very easily? Are you somebody who once you've done wrong, you can course correct pretty and not get caught up in ego pretty easily? I know a couple of them. I know a couple in our church right now that I can think of, where they'll say something and they're like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I'm so sorry, right? They can just, or they are wronged and they can forgive so easily, right? I know those people. That looks appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not usually the people who are going around saying I'm right about things. Their belief system is something else.
So this
Does
might
that
be.
make sense?
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
makes total sense to me. So there's this great quote. This is my last comment. I think it's my last comment, but in terms of like, once again, like faith and trust and belief and how they're different, but they all kind of parallel up and link with each other. Christians, those who follow Christ, those who, eat at the table of communion and bask in the waters of baptism, um, and engage with the stories. That Jesus of Nazareth guy who we follow, who we believe was the Christ, who points us to God. I always think about this. He came as an individual historic person of Jesus of Nazareth, and um, and offered so much, but then he died a person. Jesus of Nazareth died a person at the hands of the Roman Empire,
Of
at
people.
and a corrupt religious system of the day, and he died a person. And here's the quote that I love. So Oscar Romero, who is the Archbishop of El Salvador in Central South America, who was murdered, I believe, back in the 80s. He was celebrating mass. He was the archbishop, and he was shot. He was a great liberation theologian. He wanted to see the people of El Salvador not be in poverty anymore, and yada yada. And he saw Christ in every single person, even those people who were killing other people. He wanted to see them reformed, and he said this in I think it was the Easter sermon before he died. And he said this, and I love it. I'm going to quote it sometime in one of my Easter sermons. I just love it so much. He said, Jesus died a person, but rose a people.
Ooh,
Jesus died a person and rose a people.
that's so good.
The resurrection, the Easter story so deeply matters because when you look at your neighbor and you want to see the fruits of how Christ is working in you, you need to see Christ in that other person. And the resurrection that has happened in us all, the Christ that lives in us all. And so when you have a Easter story and live out an Easter story promise that Christ died a person and rose a people, and that Christ lives in everyone, you might not want to treat people like you do. Because
Yeah.
not only are you seeing Sally and Bob and Barbara and Henry and little Johnny or whatever the case may be, but you're also seeing the resurrected Christ, the resurrected Jesus in everyone. That's the beauty of the resurrection, that life didn't die. That presence now lives on collectively, and Christ's presence individually himself. So when Jesus died a person and rose a people, that having a belief in that makes a difference.
Right. Having faith in that, having a belief in that based on what we talked about in the last 2 episodes. And because we got to Easter, let's just talk about it. The other thing, let's see if I can articulate another thing I've been wrestling with. I've really been wrestling with this difference versus damage. Like, when is it difference to be respected because they're a good Samaritan, they're good? And when is it damaging and they're a Pharisee, right? And ultimately, I've thought of, number one, Sam, it's above my pay grade. I don't have to sort it all out. I'll know it when I see it, and I believe that I'll be led to do the thing that I'm led to do, right? I'll be notified when there's something for me to do. Until then, keep awake, right? Don't be vigilant, just be aware, connect with your awareness, stay there, stay in that state. And two, over and over again, because there's protests and there's ICE and there's all of these things right now, which is very hard for everybody. I think that protesting is so great. I think democracy is so great. So don't get me wrong here. And I think those things need to happen, and that's fine. Don't stop, right? Of course. But sometimes I think that there's this like greater truth underneath all of this, and Jesus showed us that when he rode into Jerusalem, where he knew he was in danger. He like rode into where his captors are, where his murderers are. And I think like this Jesus's third way that's always talked about, I think that there's just, I don't know how to not sound cuckoo, but like there's this like, can you love the people that are around you? Because that's what Jesus did. Can you eat with them? Can you break bread with them? Can you, if the time comes, walk into your own suffering, if you are notified to do so, which very few of us are going to be notified to do so, but you know what I mean? When you have people who are oppressing and they're angry over here, and the response is equal and opposite hatred and oppression, where it's like, we hate this group, so I'm going to display power over them. And then you have this other group that comes over as protectors of them and saying, we hate you, and I'm going to have power over you. It's just this game of power. It's the Game of Thrones that we talk about over and over. Just this like, I don't want to rise up and take power anymore. I don't want to be a part of the group. It's why I still identify as a Democrat or a liberal, but even liberals are getting like, you're just trying to take over the power in this. Like, you're just using the same methods sometimes, it feels like, of, well, you hate them. Well, I'm going to hate you as much as you hate them. Do you know what I mean?
Which is so unproductive.
It's unproductive. If you're a person of faith, it's not it's not the third way that Jesus showed us. If you're a part of the Christian faith, that's not the way Jesus showed us. He didn't try to take power. He didn't try to become a Pharisee. He didn't try to become a priest, or I don't know if priest is the right language. He didn't try to become emperor. He didn't try to create a new government. He didn't even create a church, actually. I mean, in his lifetime, you know what I mean? That wasn't something he tried to do.
I know what you mean.
Okay. So I just think that there's a third way, and we're all missing an opportunity. And if we don't, I just think these things are going to keep happening until we realize that, like, yeah, maybe maybe the progressives and the people waking up to the evil that is happening right now, right? I say that with 100% confidence. I really morally feel right about that. Like, evil is happening. What is happening with ICE is terrible. And of course, protest, and of course, be mad. But I think that hating the people who are doing it is just going to give us maybe a couple of decades, maybe a century of peace. And then it's just, this lesson is going to circle back around for humanity until we can grasp that there's actually a third way we're being called into, and this isn't it. And I think the answer is a lot more to do with love than it does hating the people who are oppressing. And I know that's very backwards for people to get, that like, oh, so ICE is just going to stop if we love them. Maybe. I think it takes a little imagination to realize that what we're doing isn't working. And I'm not saying the protesting. I'm not saying don't be mad, because anger has a place in love, right? love doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior. I think it's tricky and I think it takes soul searching. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
Okay.
I totally do. And there's a lot of people who are protesting in a non-violent, like a
Way
lot
in
of the like
a
a lot of the protesting in many of the cities, but specifically in Minneapolis and Minnesota, um, the general protests that I have been following and seeing are nonviolent. They are people marching and moving from place to place, sometimes staying in place. There's people singing songs and lighting candles and keeping vigils. There are people that are carrying like I always think like the church, especially liturgical churches, we're all into like carrying banners and candles and all these type of things. I always think like our procession, our processions at church are like a great protest,
Yeah.
a protest showing that we stand with the poor, we share Jesus's light,
Even the
we
protesters who are, and unfortunately one of them again has been killed, but even protesters who are putting their bodies in harm's way so that others can be protected, that feels third way to me, right? Of just
right,
this arms up, I'm not trying to hurt you, but I am trying to protect them. That feels third way. There's a lot of third way energy, and I don't want to like the protesting, the vigils, the candles. We're going to a thing in a week or so. I think that's important. I actually think it's a lot of the rhetoric, it's the language. I actually think a lot of the behavior is third way energy coming from people who are against what's happening right now. But I think a lot of the rhetoric that we see spoken, even whenever I go hang out with people, some of the language that I hear is so like, I hate them. I think they're terrible. And like, I think that's just keeping the thing in
yeah,
circulation.
it's keeping hatred in circulation. You can't, I mean, you can't do that. I mean,
Right.
that's not what we're to do. I always think sometimes, I think I said like 15 minutes ago that my last comment was there, but the more and more we talk about this and kind of centering it on belief and what we place our trust in, our faith in, what we have belief in, um, is there's something very my favorite story is the Easter story. Hands down, every time it's gonna get me. It transforms me, and it's my favorite story ever. However, probably second to that is the week before Palm Sunday, and you know, at our church, we do something called, which has become a very historic thing in many churches. We call it the children's procession, in which the children process either outside the church, we process inside, and we carry palm branches and we sing that great old hymn, "All glory, laud, and honor," right? And sometimes, and it's beautiful, and I love it, and the kids love it, and they're whacking each other with the palms, and they're having a great time. And I remember
And
doing
then
it.
he sends the children back to the pews with the parents, and I am one of those parents. And the kids are just turning these palms into like weapons in the pews, and parents have to give like nonviolent teachings to their children.
Oh my God. Yeah. All right. Well,
It's good though. I like it.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. So
this is hold on real quick. This is a joke. I do not mean this at all. But sometimes I think about like telling the kids like, listen, these are blessed palms. These are holy palms. You need to treat them with reverence. Don't crack your sister with them.
no, I think you should say that.
Don't crack your brother with them.
I think that's
um,
important to say.
but that story is so powerful. That procession is so powerful. And sometimes I think we modern day Christians have lost the root of that procession in particular. A great procession of palms and singing, and moving about, to welcome something quite powerful. Now we kind of just, well, we do it because it's what we've always done, you know, type of a thing. But sometimes I think it's lost its salt.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're going in a lot of directions, but I do think that like it's a story you really have to live into. And something that I hear over and over again, and something that I used to say is like, well, why doesn't church teach that? Why wasn't that taught in church? Number one, if you're paying attention, it is. It's all there. Like, listen to everything. But also, just like children go to school and learn things, but they have to go home and their parents have to reinforce it, right? It's and your life, you have to like live your life and learn it. Like, there's things that I learned in college where I thought was so dumb, and then 10 years later, I'm like, oh, I see now. I think church is the same way. Where like, what you want to go to church 1, maybe 2 or 3 hours a week and just know everything. Like, people get degrees in this. Go read some books. Go to some lectures. Go to some other events. Join some groups. Like explore. Meditate on your own and see what answers come. Like, there's so many things you can do for some clarity. So maybe we shouldn't put that much pressure on an hour of church to have this, like, I see you smiling, like this whole thing. But in summary, our whole point in this episode is to believe is related to beloved, to beloved. So what do you beloved? What is beloved to you? What do you hold dear is where this word believe comes from. What do you hold dear? It becomes pretty clear what we hold dear. I've said this because it's something I've been thinking about, but what do you spend the last and first 30 minutes of your day doing? That's probably what you hold dear. I'm not always the proudest of my answers, but I mean, like, pay attention to it. Pay attention to your attention, because that's probably what you're holding dear. I want to watch documentaries all day. I'll probably watch one when we get off here, but I should probably stop and go play for 2 hours with my children. Right? Like, what do you hold dear? What is beloved to you? Is it love? Is it loving people? Or is it something else? Is it hating people? Oh, our daughter is officially awake. All right,
Yep.
stay
They
curious.
both are. Yep. Stay curious. Stay
Yes.
curious.
To understand.